Father, Son, and please subscribe. Hey everybody, Lindsay here, and this is my reviews for House of Gucci and Ghostbusters Afterlife. First, we're going to talk about House of Gucci.
You picked a real firecracker.
She's a handful.
Bravo! Directed by Ridley Scott, The House of Gucci tells the story of Patrizia, played by Lady Gaga, and her getting her claws and worming her way into the Gucci family business via Adam Driver. I was very excited to see this movie because there was a lot of press around it. It had a bunch of actors in it that I really enjoyed. It had Lady Gaga, Adam Driver, Al Pacino, Jeremy Irons, and it has Jared Leto.
Nobody has ever said that to me. Nobody.
Oh, Jared Leto. Why are you doing this to me? It's such an easy impression to do. You cross Christopher Walken and Mario from Super Mario Brothers, and you have Jared Leto's performance in this movie.
Stop, you're going to make me. You're going to make me cry.
Oh my god. It's chica.
It's chic.
While I did really enjoy watching this movie, it is 2.5 hours long. It's a very long movie, and it feels its length, but it's very fun to watch, and not because the story is engaging and what's going on is engaging. It's just the performances that are happening in front of you, because Jared Leto and Al Pacino are so over the top. When they're on screen together, it's like a fight over who gets to chew the scenery more. Jeremy Irons is very good. Adam Driver is very good. Lady Gaga is very good. Salma Hayek's good. I wish I would have seen more of Salma Hayek. And not just more of her in a mud bath, but more of her character in general. And that, I think, was my biggest complaint about the film, is that about 3/4 of the way through, Lady Gaga's character and Salma Hayek, they just kind of disappear and they're just in the background. They're not the main driving force of the movie, where for me, I saw this as a movie where Lady Gaga's character, Patrizia, is our guide through the film, but then she's just kind of shoved to the wayside for the last third of the movie, and we're following more of Adam Driver. Like I said, the majority of what I liked was the performances of themselves, but the storyline seemed to falter quite a bit because they focused on things that weren't really exciting or important to the story, and then they gloss over a lot of things that have huge implications on the story, but just aren't fully earned. Because, like, Adam Driver's turn towards the end of the film, you know, where he's gonna divorce Lady Gaga and all this stuff, his turn into that character is so sudden and abrupt. It happens very quickly, and we don't get to see it come to fruition. We don't see the motivations behind it. So it seems very odd and out of place to me. And then it just sort of ends. So if you do go see this movie, go see it for the crazy performances and just how over the top it is, because it's extremely entertaining in that aspect. But as far as the storyline and the drama going on, I could take it or leave it. And I knew a little bit of what happened before going into the movie. You know, I knew there was going to be some kind of murder plot, and that's just from the trailers and people talking about it. I didn't know any of the real life situation that happened around that act. But I did know a little bit about Gucci's history, you know, where Tom Ford came in and revitalized and drug them into the 20th century with their designs and the way they did business. But other than that, I really had no concept of everything that went on with the House of Gucci, and that no Gucci's are involved with the company anymore, even though they're really fucking pissed at Ridley Scott over this movie. And to be honest, that's been the most entertaining part of this movie coming out for me, is just Ridley Scott deciding that he doesn't give a fuck anymore. I don't know if he ever did, but he definitely doesn't now. Between his frustrations over the box office of Last Duel and his fight with the Gucci family, it's been nothing but entertainment.
Fuck you, thank you very much. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself. Go on. So, go on.
But that's all I have to say about House of Gucci. Now let's move on to Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Who are you?
Ghostbusters Afterlife. There's so much that has already been said about this film that I'm not going to go into like the broader aspects of the film and what they were going for. I'm just going to talk about it with my own personal experience of going to watch this film and how I related to it on a personal level. That's what I'm going to talk about, because I think everything else has already kind of been said about it. I wanted to see it. I wasn't super excited to see it. I was interested to see how they would take the story and how they would connect it to the first one, and if they would do it in a believable way and not just, hey, remember this nostalgic porn kind of way. And I think they struck kind of a happy medium with it for the most part. But I watched the teaser trailer, and that was it. And I watched the little Stay Puft Marshmallow extravaganza. But other than that, I didn't watch any more trailers. So I didn't expect a lot going in when I went to see it. And I'll have to say this whole pandemic stretch of people not being able to go out into the theater and then coming back to it, people still have not learned how to behave themselves in a movie theater. Because there was maybe 7 other people in the theater with me, and none of them were kind or courteous to everyone else in the theater. There was one older couple that talked throughout the whole thing and made audible commentary on certain sections of the film. There was a group of 4 teenage girls who kept tromping up and down the stairs several times throughout the movie, very loudly, and throwing their popcorn and candy around. And this other guy had 2 small boys with him that he let run throughout the theater during the entire thing. So my movie-going experience was not optimal when I went and saw this, but I still was able to enjoy watching most of the film. I did get sucked in a few times, but I was heavily distracted by what was going on around me. But I must say, overall, I did enjoy the film. The last act, they just kind of copied the last act of the first film, and so none of that was surprising. It was very predictable. You kind of knew what was going to happen once they got to that section of the film. And at the end, when the 3 remaining Ghostbusters show up, you've got Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson. When they show up, it seemed very forced to me. And a little it just seemed like they just showed up and said their lines. There wasn't a lot of heart put into their performance personally. They recited the lines that are iconic for that scene from the first film. So, I mean, it was cool to see them, but I don't know if they needed to show up. I think just the phone call with Dan Aykroyd would have been enough to connect it to the older Ghostbusters and all the other stuff. So I wasn't I wasn't super impressed by them showing up at the end. It is what it is. But there were certain parts of the movie that I thought were very exciting and adventurous and drew me in and drew me into these characters, especially when they take Ecto-1 out and they're chasing Muncher, is that his name? And they're driving and destroying stuff down Main Street. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie because it felt natural to the film. It wasn't anything taken from the first film or taken from anywhere else. It was original to this story, and it worked really well, and it was shot very well, and it was fun. That was probably my favorite parts of the movie. I also like Paul Rudd a lot. Just his summer school teacher attitude where he's showing the kids Cujo and Child's Play. Paul Rudd is always adorable, but in the end it devolves into just a rehash of the first film. So I wasn't as impressed on that level with it. But where I did connect personally with the film is my dad passed away from cancer several years ago, and he was very much an Egon type of guy, you know. He was heavily influenced by science and technology, and growing up he would always show us these experiments or projects that he had going. He was a science teacher, so he had all this cool shit and microscopes and chemicals and different electronics and computers and computer programs. He had all this cool stuff in his classroom, and we also had it in our basement. You'd go down the basement around the corner, and there up against the wall was his desk with 3 or 4 different computers, and then just bookshelves of other projects that he was working on that he never finished. So I really identified with McKenna Grace's character, especially when she goes down the fire pole and there's all these projects around, and Egon's ghost is guiding her through everything. And it just made me think of how much I miss my dad. And while that connected me to the storyline of the film, it made me feel really shitty because I'm sitting there in a movie that's supposed to have these very sweet and tender and loving things happening on screen, and it's just making me depressed because my father's gone also. And also the ending felt a little emotionally manipulative of the audience because they hold on Harold Ramis's digital ghost for so long, and and it just seems cheap and manipulative at times. It didn't bother me as much as it bothered other people, because I think it just depends on what your relationship was with that original movie, and if it struck you that strongly where you had this strong emotional response to the ending of this film, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone's going to react to it differently. I reacted to it in a personal way with my relationship with my father, and while that didn't necessarily bring warm memories and feelings to me, it just made me realize how much I still really miss my dad. So I'm still conflicted on how I feel about this movie, because it brought up very, very, very personal feelings and memories and experiences for me, whereas a majority of the audience, it brought up very emotional memories that they have for the first film, which I do too. I loved that movie. We watched it all the time, and my dad loved that movie too, so it was kind of a double whammy on that end. So I don't know 100% what I feel about this movie, because I mean, I saw it in a very distracting environment. It brought up very, very personal memories for me, and so I need to watch it again and sit with it for a while to kind of understand my feelings about it. Overall, I think they did the best job that they could in carrying forward this story and introducing it to a new generation. I think they made the best choices they could. I think they were a little emotionally manipulated with it, and I don't think they had to follow the ending of the first one beat for beat as much as they did. But overall, I think they did a good job. So I'm not going to knock it too much. Well, that is going to do it for these 2 movie reviews. If you've seen either one of these films, please let me know what you thought down in the comments. I would love to hear about it. Please let me know if you have a Jared Leto House of Gucci impression also. So until next time, this is Lindsay signing off. I'll check you later.